Assuming a new Apple TV 4K is actually on the way, will this new Apple TV 4K actually come with a built-in camera? Is it secretly Apple's Trojan horse for the smart home? And could it actually, brace yourself, launch for under $100? We're breaking down all the rumors, all the wishful thinking, and what's actually believable. Plus, how does motion smoothing actually work and make so many people mad? Plus, extended warranties, when to buy and when to fly. What's up, everyone? I'm Caleb Dennison. Welcome back to CalebRated and our Saturday morning ritual, Just Ask Caleb. Got a question? Just ask Caleb. Yeah, I'm still into it. By the way, if anyone's keeping track, the marketing team in the basement now wants dental. So yeah, I'll just leave that. Paul from the UK writes, my question is around the eagerly expected Apple TV box upgrade, which may or may not be out by the time you read this. What upgrades do you think this will bring for movie nuts like us? I, for one, wonder what part AI will play in the device. Could Apple do an AI-based upscale to improve image quality, or even a better solution to motion smoothing that eliminates judder or artifacts? Okay, here's what's on the table right now. Most of the reliable leaks, and I use reliable loosely here, suggest a new Apple TV 4K is actually on deck for late 2025. There's no real cadence for Apple TV releases. The first was in 2017, then it was 2021, then a year and a half later in 2022. So it would be 3.5 years, and then 1.5, and now 3-ish. So sure, it seems plausible one might be on the way. I know we would all like to get one. Now, under the hood, everyone's pointing to a new A17 Pro or A18 chip, the same kind of silicon that's used in the iPhone 16 Pro. That's gonna mean way more processing headroom for better gaming, better graphics, better TV presentation, better motion resolution, better everything, right? Yes, it could involve better processing for a better picture on your TV, so your TV's processor doesn't have to work as much. Whatever Apple is willing to do, it's definitely going to be powerful enough to do it. Could also mean that we're looking at Apple Intelligence or on-device Siri smarts. In other words, if Apple wants the Apple TV 4K to feel less like a streaming puck and more like a tiny Mac, you know, the way the iPad feels a lot like a MacBook Air and the Mac Studio feels like a Mac Pro, well, this would track. Next would be the smart home hub theory. Now, this is where things get pretty interesting and a little bit sci-fi. There are hints in the code for tvOS 26 that reference Thread 1.4 and Matter protocols, basically meaning that Apple's treating this little box as the brains of your smart home, which is totally believable because Apple's been inching toward that for years. Apple HomeKit shows up on most smart TVs, but Apple TV 4K would need to be way, way better at this. Then there's the built-in camera rumor. FaceTime calls on the couch, gesture control, maybe even motion tracking fitness apps. All cool ideas, right? But also super un-Apple to stick a camera in your living room without a clear privacy story. Look, Samsung hasn't brought cameras back to its TVs since it tried and then removed them between, I think it was 2012 and 2014 or something. Also, the Sony Bravia Theater Cam, I don't think those are exactly flying off the shelves. Nobody else is doing a camera in the living room. I think Apple's more likely to have you pull your phone out of your pocket for any video stuff. So I'm gonna make a call on this one and say, not a chance with the built-in camera. Now for design, price, and this Pro idea. Most whispers say the design stays basically the same. It's gonna be a sleek black hockey puck, maybe a little bit smaller and sleeker. I'm pretty sure Apple will make us want it, even when we already do want it. No, the more intriguing rumor to me is the idea that there might be two versions, a standard model and a Pro Apple TV 4K with more storage, faster Wi-Fi 6E, maybe even Wi-Fi 7, maybe an Ethernet port for the diehards. And if it did all that, then maybe, just maybe, the lower model might have like a sub $100 price tag. I mean, again, I'm gonna have to go hard no on that one. That one's like the Sasquatch of Apple rumors. Fun to imagine, but not real. Maybe your Uncle Carl having too much fun with mescaline and whiskey in the woods. I do think Apple could shave a few bucks off of either one or two Apple TVs, stay competitive with Roku and Fire TV, or maybe it's a dip in price on the lower model and something people could get outraged over on the Pro model if it actually exists. Now for some wild cards. Every rumor mill has them. A new Siri remote with haptics, maybe a game controller-like layout, maybe colors that aren't black, because if the HomePod can go midnight blue, why not the Apple TV 4K? And this one's my favorite. Ray tracing for Apple Arcade gaming. If that last one happens, I will hang my silver play button on the wall with a lightning cable, which if y'all keep going like you have, I'm gonna get that thing in the mail before the ball drops. The play button, not the lightning cable. I still have tons of those. Okay, so here's how I'd rank the likelihoods of all of this. Very likely, new chip, stronger Wi-Fi, smart home emphasis. As maybes, we've got new remote, slightly smaller box, two-tier model lineup. And under the absolutely not category, built-in camera or sub $100 price point. Not getting either one of those, at least not yet. That's what I think anyway. What do you think? Drop your thoughts down below for me, would you? Charantan writes, all TVs have the option for motion smoothing, but how does it work? Does the system insert fake frames between real ones? If so, what do the fake frames look like and how are they created? What data is used to create them? This is a great prompt. I think we needed to talk about how motion smoothing and other kinds of supplemental motion improving processes work to fix motion issues that you see on a TV. I think we needed to talk about that for a long time. So let's do that. There are 3 different approaches to motion smoothing, and they were created to address different problems. We've got frame interpolation, aka MEMC, frame insertion or frame repetition as number 2, and number 3 is black frame insertion, aka BFI. Now, frame interpolation / MEMC / motion estimation, motion compensation is created to help reduce judder. And it works by making up frames to go between the frames that actually exist. This is the process that creates soap opera effect. So if we have a movie shot at 24 FPS, frames per second, it's actually 23.97, but we're gonna round up here for simplicity. We're gonna need to get that 24 frames per second up to 30 frames per second. So we're gonna need 6 new frames, roughly 1 fake frame per original frame. Now, if we're trying to get 24 FPS up to 60 FPS, we're gonna need 36 frames, which will be a bit of a blend of repeated frames and interpolated or made up frames. About 1 or 2 new frames between each original. And for 120 FPS, we'd need to create 96 new frames. Again, a combo of repeated frames and interpolated frames, or about 4 new frames between each original. Now, interpolation is tech speak for high-end digital guesswork. Here's what that looks like in a simple graphic. We have an object right here in this one frame, and then it's way over here in the next frame. So what the processor needs to do for interpolation is it needs to create a new frame with the object in between those 2 far-flung locations so that it's gonna smooth things out. Now here's a real-life scene. If we have a scene like this where we have cars moving and background moving due to the panning camera, the processor is going to need to make up frames that have a car appearing in new places in between the original and the next frame. And it's gonna have to do the same thing for the moving window frames and other objects that are moving due to the movement of the camera itself. Now, if the camera moves fast, then there's gonna be a big gap between where this window is in one frame and where it is in frame 2. So you can start to imagine how complicated this is, right? So many objects to keep track of and digitally create pixel by pixel replicas of and place them in the right spots with different rates of object motion happening. That is why we see motion artifacts with frame interpolation. The processors understandably make mistakes, though admittedly, they are getting better and better over time. Anyway, when you basically make up frames and put them in the middle of real frames, it creates this sort of fake look, artificially smoothed, almost 2-dimensional. We call it soap opera effect because it looks more like TV than a movie. The next kind of motion smoothing is frame repetition or frame doubling. This is where the TV repeats real frames to fill in those gaps that we talked about before. This is not the same as 3-2 pull down or telecine conversion. That's going to need to be another video. Now, this is often done to reduce the judder or stutter that naturally happens due to the way a TV holds onto a frame before refreshing, if there's no processing on at all. It's not creating any new pictures, it's just creating new frames based on frames that it's already got. It repeats them. And then there's black frame insertion, or BFI. This is designed to reduce blur that is actually caused by your eyes. That's right, your eyes and brain are causing the blur, not the TV. See, with high frame rate content, while your eyes move, the display is holding a static image in place. So the moving object's light gets smeared across your retina. The result is called eye tracking motion blur. Edges of moving objects appear soft or smeared, even though the content is perfectly sharp frame by frame. That's the why. Now for the how. BFI works by putting a break in between each frame, and it does that by inserting black pixels or a black frame. It can do this by shutting off the TV's backlight or inserting all black pixels for an OLED TV or other emissive displays. The problem with BFI is that it will dim the image because you're reducing the amount of light going out toward you. It can also cause visible flicker for some folks, and in some cases, it can induce a sick feeling even. It's definitely bad for those who can have epileptic seizures induced by flashing lights. Now, some brands have tried playing around with this so that the BFI only kicks in when and where it's needed. So it isn't an entire frame of black insertion. And that works pretty great, but it is super resource intensive from what I understand. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully that was easy to understand. But if we need to dig into this a little bit more, let me know down in the comments. Dubs2171 writes, what are your thoughts on extended warranties on TVs? Specifically, Best Buy's Geek Squad. I went in on a 5-year warranty on my TCL 98-inch. It added an extra $600. My reasoning? 1, I've heard TCL's customer service is not great. 2, the size of the TV, also probably the cost. 3, brand. I know they've come a long way, but it's still a new brand of TV. And I'm aware that this is a roll of dice with any brand. And number 4, I'm doing a remodel in the space the TV's going to and figured if it sucks in any extra dust, it may prematurely degrade components. Okay, first, Dubs, thanks for asking this because I've needed to talk about this for a while. Extended warranties are tricky. Sometimes they make a lot of sense and sometimes they really don't. That's why they are fairly easy for good salespeople to sell. I mean, I wish I could say that there was some sort of magic bullet calculus that you could use to determine whether an extended warranty is worth it. I don't have that. What I do have is my perspective to share after being in this business for 30 years. 1, you really are buying peace of mind. That's an intangible that matters a lot to some folks and absolutely nothing to others. So which one are you? That's going to start swaying you one way or the other. 2, how much does this item cost? Is it relatively inexpensive to replace if it does go bad? If not, don't do the warranty. Failure rates aren't really that high. Fact is, your device is probably going to last. The numbers are in your favor. Unless, 3, are you a klutz or in a high-risk environment? Dubs, that goes to your renovation dust situation. If so, you might want to go for the warranty. 4, opposite of 2, is it an expensive purchase? Well, then the extended warranty may be a good idea because the return on investment is going to be huge if you do have a problem. 5, how repairable is the device? TVs are almost always totaled if there's a problem. Computers, not as much. They have lots of replaceable parts. If you're getting a device that can't easily be repaired, then it may be a good idea to go ahead and get the warranty. 6 is a subset of that last one. Are there a bunch of easily breakable parts? If so, you might want to lean toward the warranty. And 7 is really just advice. Don't base whether you get the warranty on the brand's reputation for reliability. At that point, you could take the extra money and instead buy a more expensive brand that is supposedly less likely to fail. At least that's how I see it. I don't know, what do y'all think about extended warranties? Do you rely on your credit card's own extended warranty? Or do you like to spend a little extra and buy one at the store? Do you look at the terms of the extended warranty first? Tell me in the comments, like, subscribe, ring that bell, and hit that hype button. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, take care. Actually, I need to pull that plant away from the heater. I bet it doesn't like that. Okay.